I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we see that. Mindy, if you would, call roll, please.
All right, Garrett, are you here? Teresa Taylor's here. Deb?
Here.
Deb Christie's here. Shelley?
Here.
Shelley Featherston. I'm Mindy Nash and I'm here.
So, not present is, David Willman. He's our vice chair, out of town. So we have 3 out of 4 voting members, so we can establish a quorum. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Everybody got a copy? Yes. Okay. There being,
Shelley, just a point of order, since I'm a non-voting member, is it still a quorum?
yes, because, we have 4 voting members and 3 out of 4 here, 75%. So if there's no changes or amendments to the agenda, we'll go ahead and proceed. We just got copies of the minutes from the meeting, last meeting held January 23rd, 2025. So if you'll give us a minute so we can scan through them, and then I would entertain a motion that they be approved or amended. So give us a second, we'll read through them right quick.
I just doubt it. Never doubt it.
Are there any questions, comments? If there aren't any changes or corrections to the minutes, is there a motion that they be approved as presented?
A motion, they be approved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so the minutes, and then we have a copy to sign and present to the village clerk. Under new business, the next bullet point is appointment of Latrell Joy as a non-voting member. Latrell has, her background is she is an attorney and has served on the city council of Lubbock for many, many years. So she brings some pretty good perspective. She's been helping us each time we change the wording of our proposed amendment. She kind of reads through it both with the lens of a city council person from her experience and from her experience as being an attorney. So she kind of helps us, guides us with some wording and some maybe pitfalls that we might run into. She would be a non-voting member as she's not a full-time resident or a citizen of Angel Fire, but she's still willing to serve on the committee and lend us her expertise. So is there any question?
Point of order there. certainly a recommendation can be made, but committees actually cannot seat new committee members.
Okay.
All committee members serve at the pleasure of the mayor. I've been reviewing this evening's council meeting, which is quite lengthy, where we are reconfirming all committee members. So if an addition would like to be made, certainly that's worth discussing, but it's not actually something that the committee can take direct action on.
So then, first of all, we need a motion to recommend to council that they appoint Latrell as a member.
Motion.
Second, okay. So Jake, is that something you can do at tonight's meeting, or does it have to be on the agenda?
It would have to be on the agenda, so we can certainly do it at the next one, but it couldn't make tonight's agenda to seat a new
And
committee.
that is January
27th should be the
27th.
next one.
So would that take then a staff recommendation from us, one of those fill in the blank forms?
So yeah, if you have a recommendation, a committee recommendation to seat a new committee member would basically be what you're doing. And if you can get that to the clerk can have that added to the agenda for the next council meeting.
Okay, well, thanks for your help on the administrative part of that. Another item that has come up in discussions throughout the process was the potential of having Angel Fire recognized as a dark sky community. And we, from what I found somewhere in the International Dark Sky website, was that their process for reviewing is that step one, we submit a draft code or statute for an interim review, and there's a fee of $250 to do that. And then they provide feedback, and then once our code or statute is finalized and in place, then we resubmit it to Dark Sky for an official recognition, and the fee for that is $750. That's all I have. I think, Mindy, were you talking about like ongoing compliance checks or something?
Oh, no, I just said there are like people that will act as consultants for this. I am not one of them. I don't think any of us are those people, but there are people that are available that the village could hire to act as a consultant. If this is something that is mostly we want it so that we can push tourism, then maybe it's something for that budget. But yeah,
Okay.
that's a potential.
Yeah, and that's as deep as I got, because the first step is submitting to them a proposed ordinance. They won't actually enact upon it until ours is that. So for efficiency purposes, the more we can communicate with them up front, if this is truly a goal of the village, then it would save us steps in as far as communicating back and forth with the International Dark Sky. So I think our next step in that process would be to have a proposed ordinance being moved forward at a village council meeting. Once that's approved, my understanding is it would have to go to the village's legal counsel and public meetings,
Public hearing
public hearings.
to modify an ordinance.
So then, once it's finally approved, and then that would probably be at the same time, we could submit that to Dark Sky International, ask for their review and see if they need modifications before it's finalized. Hopefully, it may just be a tweak or two and we can move forward. If we're way off from what International Dark Sky requires, then this committee and the village would need to decide, do we want to establish something in place and that be something we work towards? Or is this a right now type of goal where we modify an ordinance before it's passed so that we know that Dark Sky, but that would kind of be a decision down on the road when we know how much, if any, we need to modify a proposed ordinance before it's finalized. That make sense?
Yes, I'd like to go on record that I'm willing to supply the $250 seed money to start this process.
Well, I would hope the village could afford it. If you're volunteering to do that, then that definitely shows the committee's.
Show us
commitment
there
behind
we
it.
are.
Well, thank you very much. If there's no further new business, the old business would be to discuss and vote on advancing our proposed ordinance to the village council. And to kind of catch everybody up, refresh our memories of the history and what's been going on. Thought I wrote that down somewhere, but we haven't met since January of 25, almost a full year. And since then, we've been trying to, we've been continually modifying the wording of our ordinance. But each time we approached the council, it wasn't satisfactory to them. What I kind of remember hearing is they wanted something that was practical and enforceable. And if I can add a line in there from my discussions, my understanding is also that they wanted it to be simple and easy to understand. And so in August, and we kept trying to address specific issues. And so the more we tried to address specific issues, the deeper and deeper we got into details. And the deeper we got into details, the more details there were. So we're trying to scale it back and make it general and comprehensive, but simple and understandable. There was a lot of concern about the understandability of properties being restricted to lumens measured to light, exterior lighting measured by lumens, and the difficulties of monitoring that. So in August of 25, we learned that Breckenridge became the first international dark sky recognized community, resort community, mountain resort community in Colorado to be recognized by International Dark Sky. And we said, wow, that's impressive. How did they do it? Because we're more of a resort community. And a lot of the ordinances that we were trying to model our ordinance off of were more like cities, you know, and we're not. We're just a little village here in the mountains. So we started looking at the Breckenridge ordinance, and one of the biggest differences was that the Breckenridge ordinance measures or their qualifications are exterior lighting based on the number of exterior doors you have plus another number. You're not out there counting lumens or anything. Their ordinance, I felt anyway, was more oriented towards businesses in their downtown district and bistro lights and restaurants and shops, whereas we don't have so much of a downtown at this point in time. A lot of our light, village light, comes from residences. So we modified it and pulled out what we felt were the best parts, kind of modeling it after theirs, and came up with what we have now, which is totally different than what had been proposed to the village council in times past. So the base, go ahead.
If I could just add some context, Chair Shelley Kaiser and I both talked to Breckenridge at length about this, and it seemed like they hit the same roadblock that we did, that sending a village employee out with a lumen meter seemed like a very dubious process to go down. And so they actually were the ones that keyed us into this, put a cap on the brightest light you can have is this, and then you're allowed so many lights based on your ingress egress path. And it was a much simpler, as opposed to, we're gonna have to have code enforcement, and how do we buy the lumen meter? Where does it get set up? And so this was a cleaner solution. And they actually told me that Dark Sky, and I haven't verified this was Dark Sky, was headed in the same direction, that pegging things to the total lumen, well, now you have to measure things in lumens, as opposed to when you're going through plan submissions, it's very easy to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, you can count up lights fairly quickly. And as long as those lights meet the technical specifications laid out, you essentially end up in a very similar place. You just have an easier way to account for your total light per lot. So I hope that gives a little context.
Yes, thank you.
We believe that this would be accepted by Dark Sky as well, because it obviously just was in Breckenridge, and we essentially copied their standard. So
We modeled it.
we modeled it.
We modeled it.
Modeled's a better word, but essentially that's where the idea came from.
So a follow-up to that would be yes, and I think with Angel Fire Village's governance, focusing now a lot on growth, that a lot of their programs are very growth oriented, that this also kind of falls in line with that, because it does target more so new construction. where there is I don't know if the village does it, but I know the, resort anyway has an architecture review committee where they have to review the plans and say, yes, this fits resort standards. I don't think we can ever, change the covenants of the resort. But the architect, if this is an ordinance, then the architecture review committee can tell a builder, this won't pass the village. It's not they're saying it won't pass resort regulations, but they're warning the builder this won't pass city regulations. So they're kind of acting as a go-between until or unless the village has its own zoning and planning board regulation that would monitor and have to approve new building plans. So then the follow-up question is, well, I've had my house for 9 years and it's got this, and this light. What do I do? You know, if I have, and so the calculation is, at least for residences, and then we do address businesses as well. For a normal independent single-family home, the calculation is you count up the number of exterior doors you have, multiply by 2 and add 6. And that's how many exterior lights you can have. So if it's important to you to have exterior lights by your doorways and your garage door, then that's where you place them. If you'd rather have lights over your deck for your parties, your barbecues, or that, then that's where you place them. So you're given a cap of how many lights, where you put them is up to you. So you say, well, I have a house for 9 years and and I've got this many doors and this many lights. Do I have to pull my lights out now? And the answer is no. We don't use the term grandfathered, but if you have an existing home with existing lights, then within the next 5 years, you need to change out, if they're not downward facing within the 300 Kelvin light range, fully shielded, if they don't meet the requirements, then within 5 years, you would need to just replace your fixtures, not the number. We're not asking anybody to cap their fixtures or anything. And Deb, you just did that, right?
I just did that.
You want to tell us how hard it was?
It wasn't at all. I went online, I found some dark sky compliant fixtures. And I ordered 8. I have 8 fixtures. They're all LED lights. They're integrated within the fixture. So I guess the bad thing about that is that the LED light eventually goes out and you have to replace the entire fixture. But it's 12 inches tall. It has a very pretty carriage glass to it. It's a warm light. I installed them all myself.
You didn't have to get an electrician
I
out.
didn't have to get electricity by myself. I did it by myself. A lot of problem solving there, but it was good. So I just replaced the current fixtures that were on my house. My house is 30 years old and they're all original equipment. So I just took those down, put my new ones back up. And it was quite easy. I told Shelley the wrong number because I thought I got them on sale, but I looked at them and they were about $195 a piece. And they're gonna last 20, 30 years because I'm not gonna have them on every night, all the night, till 10 o'clock. I'm just gonna have them on when people are coming over. The only thing is it's, the carriage light has kind of a circly, bubbly downward effect onto my new deck. And so it's just having to get used to how the light shines on my deck. And the stairwell is fabulous. It's all this downward light. It's bright, easy to see my steps. I love them. I just love them.
So, I was gonna ask. So how many did you end up doing? You said 8?
I got 8.
Yeah. So that's, and then, like I said, that would be for a single family residence. For businesses, can't remember off the top of my head, but the ordinance is focused more towards some of these little strip centers where each doorway would count as 1 plus 2 more. So they could have a light over each doorway plus several underneath the awning for any building. We also address carports, the gas station canopies, etc. So those were the major changes. We then also ran through it again about a month ago in December and further just simplified it by omitting some language that was duplicative or overly restrictive. We were trying to, again, be too detail oriented rather than big picture oriented. So some of the language we took out was being real specific on street lighting and stuff. But the village can work with Kit Carson, who is also very interested in dark sky fixtures and stuff. I don't think that's something we can do by ordinance, we would do by procedure. So that was kind of modified as well, that through the ordinance, we couldn't dictate the details of streetlights, whereas that could be done as they're replaced or put back in. Another question is during this 5-year timeframe to ask everybody who has existing lighting to modify it. Then if they're not in compliance, then all they have to do is turn it off by 10. So that they've got 5 years in the meantime to be able to find, oh, that's what I was gonna ask you. You kind of had really nice fixtures. They were like $190 some. So as you were flipping through, you found some that were
Reasonable.
yeah, less price.
Yeah, less price.
That wasn't necessarily a style that you liked.
Right.
So that's not really a target price.
Right.
Because you
Not at all.
kind of went a
A
little
little, a
upscale.
little bit upscale, yeah.
Okay, sorry, that was my question. I got back to it. And then one other thing is, in a previous version, we had, the decorative, lighting, like for holidays and such. It was going to be November, December, January, assuming that it would be the typical, Christmas, New Year's timeframe, but we expanded that to be November through March to capture all of ski season, which is, I think, when the village likes to be attractive to visitors and be festive and everything. So we did extend that. And then went through a process of how to notify people who are not compliant. We go through a whole series of informational letters saying, well, your house is not in compliance. This is the ordinance. Here's some resources of how to get them in compliance within 5 years. So hopefully that's most of the highlights of from where we were a year ago to now. We do have a couple of 3 detail changes. And again, these are simplifying in. So this would need to be part of the minutes and part of the change of the ordinance if we so choose. And section E is exemptions. And E paragraph H currently states fixtures used to light an address shall be downward cast, fully shielded. Lamp color shall be warm white color having a CCT that correlated, what's the word, correlated color temperature that does not exceed 3,000 kelvins. Again, we're being real specific in that the lamp color shall be warm white. Well, this would be mandated, shall be, but that would then preclude someone choosing a yellow color or an orange or an amber color, which is actually less bright than warm white. So we don't want to specify warm white, A, because it's too detailed, too specific, and B, it doesn't allow for something that's actually lower in the color outfit. So I propose that the wording of that sentence be fixtures used to light an address shall be downward cast, fully shielded. Lamp color shall have a CCT that does not exceed 3,000 kelvins. So then that allows someone to use the amber colors and the yellows. And if we can just lump them all into one correction, then in H, which is our lighting standards, A(2), it's essentially the same sentence. Currently it reads, all lamp types must be white color and have a CCT that does not exceed 3,000. So I suggest we remove the must be white color and just state all lamp types must have a CCT that does not exceed 3,000 kelvins. And then in L, lighting standards for specific types. Little paragraph D is architectural lighting, little I. Again, the same concept, pretty much cut and paste. Fixtures must be fully shielded and their light downcast. Lamp color shall be warm white and have a CCT that does not exceed 3,000. I think we need to modify that to say lamp color shall have a CCT that does not exceed 3,000. Does that all sound good? So I don't think we need, do we, because this was never proposed, we don't need to vote on it, we're just working here.
So all you need is to finalize the draft and then vote to send it to the
Right.
work session
Right.
would be.
So we just changed the draft and everybody just agreed, we don't need to vote to agree, I guess. But we do need to vote on the entire content. So I got that. Okay, so we've all had a chance to read through.
Yes.
Any, do you want to comment? Any other comments?
The ordinance that'll get passed is the one I supported this.
Well,
This
and,
point.
yeah, it's not perfect. I don't know of any ordinance that is perfect. But it's I think a very good foundation. And so, I also learned, with conversations from Jake that, not all ordinances are complete in the ordinance in that there are also, operational guidelines that the city manager, the enforcement agencies, P and Z, whoever is involved at that point in time, can also, they can't modify an ordinance, but they can interpret and enforce according to the intent. So I kind of also drew up a kind of a snippet to help the village manager in compiling some operational guidelines with kind of Q&A format, sort of. Is there any grandfathering of light fixtures? And then there's no grandfathering, but existing light fixtures have to be modified. And then it also talks about, well, what kind of modifications are acceptable? They can't be temporary modifications, like just going in and painting your glass things black. They have to be either a new shield or a new fixture. So it does describe, like you can't use duct tape, cardboard, that kind of stuff to modify your fixture. So it helps the city manager and whoever is compliance oriented at that time, how to interpret the intent so that as they enforce it, they understand the intent without like trying to come in and modify. So that was another thing we were trying to do. And I do have a couple of questions for a village council workshop meeting. It was mostly dealing with the enforcement procedure. And this may be a discussion. Should this be a policy or should it be part of the actual ordinance? As far as currently we have it written where some authority in the village would be sending a notice every 30 days to a non-compliant property. And then fines would kick in. Well, should that be part of the ordinance or should that be part of the procedure? So there's some administrative things we need to work around. I think other ordinances that the village has does state their penalties and policies, so it may be that this would be the appropriate place. Just wanted to be sure. The way I have the ordinance written now, would that be the way to present it to a workshop? It's kind of Q&A where I have the little red lines that says, who does this apply to? What about this? What happens if? Because it really kind of focus your attention as opposed to trying to draw in
Sure.
everything. Yeah.
I think your red notes, which again, I've seen, I know everyone hasn't, it serves as kind of an outline of how this shall work is basically what's there. That's how I would present it at the council work session, because obviously not everyone at the work session will have seen it quite as much as I have. So giving them that rough draft to follow through Obviously, the notes wouldn't appear necessarily in the final ordinance, but they could in the policy. And I would just add to that, a very similar thing was done in Breckenridge where you have the letter of the law in the ordinance and then the policy that goes in behind it to tell all of the various entities that have to interact with this ordinance how they should interpret it and how they should interact with it. So totally fine to have both a separate policy and ordinance. Fine amounts and things do have to appear in the ordinance or in a resolution. We're required for anything we bill for, it has to be in one of those two places. But the policy of how you should count, how you should check, when, how often you should send out notices of violations, there's some interpretation there that may change over the years. It may need to be very frequent in the beginning and then less frequent in the later portions. So I would present it as you have now.
And that's where I think a lot of us are headed now is, let's not let perfection get in the way of something really good.
Right.
Because there is no such thing as perfect, and it's gonna have to grow, I think, as the village grows, because I think there's gonna hopefully be more commercial activity, which would need to be addressed. Right now, we're kind of writing it towards what exists now as far as, and that's another new concept I forgot to bring up, was we do kind of loosely define lighting zones, single family residential, the multifamily, and then commercial. And then they have different regulations for each, which makes sense. We had a hard time trying to define zones to begin with, but that kind of seems to fall into place. And again, not perfect because probably the lines delineating single family, commercial, and multifamily are probably fuzzy anyway on the map. So before we go ahead and take a vote to proceed with presenting this at a workshop meeting, if Jake, you wouldn't mind taking a minute and letting us know the process, what happens if we vote to move forward, what happens after that?
So if you vote to move forward, much like with requesting another committee member being seated, there's the form that gets filled out of, here's what the committee is asking, any documents have to be attached. That will have to be sent to the clerk. We have already taken some steps to go ahead and preset the work session for this. There were some calendar issues coming up later in the month, and we want to make sure we didn't have people missing. So just earlier today, actually, Clerk Strickland has reserved the 22nd at 4 o'clock for a work session on this. That would be with the full council. So if you guys vote to adopt this, the process would happen, like I said, with the paperwork, to get the document in front of council at that work session. At the work session, then we would review the entirety of the work product here with all of the council. You cannot have a vote to adopt something in a work session by definition. Work sessions are just there to be informal. Let's talk about this. Let's hash it out. Let's see if there's any questions. But in theory, if council has a favorable approach to that, then the first steps of formal adoption could happen at the next council meetings to follow after that. We'll see what council thinks. It would be a great time to present the fees associated with formal adoption. I had another committee meeting this morning. We're talking about adopting full Firewise here within the Village of Angel Fire. And so there's some fees associated with that. And a lot of times these entities have volunteer in kind that can be done in lieu of fees. These are questions that council is going to ask, but all of that would get sorted out at the work session. So it's not required that all of you attend. You're more than welcome. We welcome anyone from the public to attend the work sessions. It would be good if at least one or two of you could be there to answer any questions in case I get a little foggy on something here and there, but that would be the process. You guys adopt. We've already reserved the work session for the 22nd. From the 22nd, we would then figure out which council meeting it would go forth towards formal adoption. That would require public hearings to modify an ordinance. And I would suggest that parallel path to that would probably be official dark sky inquiries, taking that draft ordinance at that point that council will have said, okay, yes, we want to keep working on this, putting it in front of dark sky to make sure there's not something big that we've missed in there. Because if we're going to go through all this exercise, it would be good to get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow of, hey, we have dark sky official adoption for advertising purposes, not just for the marketing and the tourism that comes associated with that, but to be talking to our full-time and part-time residents about, hey, there's a change going on, we need to make you aware of it. It's the same process that's going on with Firewise of we're changing some things for the betterment of the village, but we need to really work hard at communicating with some of the folks that are a little harder to catch. So I think it's worth going through the exercise to do dark sky official adoption for the tourism, but also because it gives us another avenue to communicate and show people that, hey, we're serious about this, we're going forward, we're doing the formal adoption. I think also, much like dark sky doesn't want to address it until it's, hey, this is a real thing. I suspect that as this starts to move through the official council process, we may get some input from Kit Carson. We may get some input from the business owners in town because they either haven't been aware or we're like, that's not going to happen. I'm going to ignore that for now. But once it turns into a real process, we may get some more feedback than we've had in the past.
Thank you. A question. So what, if we're going to, we've received a lot of public support. A lot of times they don't come to these meetings, and I can't say that I don't blame them, because it's like trying to say, hey, pay attention to something we're thinking about. But now that I think we have something rock solid, would the best opportunity to rally support and have community input be at the workshop meeting or at a village council meeting?
I would say both. I think this is the more hand-holding through the process that you can get your supportive community members to attend. If you have 10 people here showing voter support at the work session and then 20 at the first public hearing meeting, well, it becomes fairly obvious to, those of us sitting behind the table at those dates that, hey, the public generally supports this. We know there are some detractors out there. Some of those just don't want to change things. Some of those are carryovers from when they thought, oh, you want to turn all the lights off.
Right.
Because there was a little bit of that attitude early on in this process. And no, we're not asking you to turn off all your lights. We know you have guests that arrive at your home late at night, and our roads can be a little challenging to navigate. If you're not familiar with them, you've got to be able to find these places. So, this is not perfect. It is not the all-encompassing blackout, turn everything off. I would suggest that getting every supportive member at all of the meetings is the right approach. I wouldn't wait, because if you say, hey, wait until it's at the first council meeting and then we hit some roadblock at the work session, then you probably missed an opportunity there. So I would say come early, come often, make sure that people are ready to show support for it.
So we've all read through the latest version with the couple little changes today. We know how to move forward. Are there any other questions, concerns? Then we need a motion
I'll move to, we're moving to push it to council, right?
to present it at the workshop session on January 22nd.
That, I move for that.
Okay.
It's 4.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
So the quorum votes in favor. We have an opportunity if someone, a visitor or attendee would like to comment. Welcome, any comments or questions?
You're doing great.
Love to hear it. Okay, so if there's nothing further, then I would ask that we, yes, we did vote, it got passed. We would each, and all of us here, encourage those that we know have been kind of supporting us, and let them know that, okay, we've reached and we've gotten over what we hope will be a major speed bump, and that we feel we have a product that is presentable to the council. It's reasonable, it's enforceable, and it's understandable. And let's encourage all those that have been encouraging us to come to the workshop meeting, and then whatever formal council meeting that it's assigned to, then encourage even more to come. So if we can do that.
What kind of social media should be used? Local paper here and that sort of thing, or
How does it get advertised through the village?
Well, so you probably won't have time to make a local paper before the meeting on the 22nd. That's only couple of weeks away now. So I would suggest whatever social media you have. I know that some of the committee members have posted about this on the various Facebook groups that are out there for Angel Fire. That's probably a good place to start. And then the people who showed up and had kind things to say about this before, text, call, whatever you can do to get them here, I think is the right answer. But I think the newspaper is gonna be a little bit too slow in this instance for the work session. It may be possible, hypothetically, let's say that this ends up really on the February council sessions, you might be able to get into a newspaper, but the only newspapers up here that I think have much readership besides Taos News, where we advertise and we'll have to advertise this. Enchanted Circle does a fair bit of reading there, but I don't know when they go to print and when it's released, what the timing would look like there. So another option to look at.
I was gonna say, honestly, I think just calling friends, texting friends, talking to people that we know from, the,
Make a daisy chain out of it.
Yeah,
Say, I
yeah.
called 5 people, you 5
Yeah,
called 5,
that's it.
you 5 called 5.
it'll be like a pyramid.
Well, if there's no other business, what I really want to do is thank the committee for hanging in there. It's been a long, hard road. We're not done yet, but like I said, I think we're over the speed bump. We've got something that, again, the council has always been asking for, something that's reasonable, enforceable, understandable. I think we have that. I think we have the majority of the council people's support. So it has been worth our time and effort. Once we get there, it will be. So in the meantime, like I said, contact as many as you can. Anything else from anybody? Then we adjourn at 4:41 according to my Fitbit, which is 2 minutes off.